January 2013 Council on Environmental Quality meeting. Welcome, everybody. Hello. Welcome. The first thing on our agenda today is we're going to discuss CEQ's roles and responsibilities as far as we are looking for a replacement for Mr. Millay, who had to leave and took another position. Today we have Peter Sculler Jr. with us sitting in, and he will discuss a few things, and I think we're going to just talk about that right now, very briefly, very quickly, just so everybody on the board understands that we're looking for a replacement and moving forward. And Jim and I have been in discussions with Christine and Sarah Lansdale about the qualifications for the new person for this position to represent Suffolk County on the board. Okay? Peter, did you want to say anything as far as?
Just briefly on my background, I work in the Department of Economic Development. I'm an attorney with an environmental policy background. So filling in for today, and I guess maybe briefly into the future, who knows.
Okay, but we're thinking it's going to be short term, and hopefully we'll have somebody replaced quickly. Okay? And Jim and I were in discussion with Sarah and Christine talking about responsibilities and what we need for somebody for our new candidate, and we're taking care of that, looking into that in very detailed what we need. I was hoping Sarah could make it here and discuss a few things about that, but she is in a conference call, Christine said, and she hasn't made here yet. Depending on how her time schedule goes and how our schedule goes, we'll see, maybe later she'll be able to make it and discuss any more details about that and how the transition process and work. Okay?
Do you want to hold off then on this?
I guess this is something that goes back to my experience as Director of Planning for a local municipality. We deal mostly with SECRA. We are practitioners of SECRA. But nevertheless, SECRA is the law. Okay, and whether we like it or not, it's the attorneys that have to defend us, have to defend whatever our decision is. And I feel very comfortable having an attorney sit at this table with us who is active in our decision making. So when Jim or Michael or myself or anybody else says, SECRA says this and that must mean, okay, it's an attorney that gives us some backup or tells us we're wrong from a legal perspective. So if we're looking for another person, there should be somebody who is either a long-term practitioner or an attorney that we trust, that can help us to make the decisions we have to make when it comes to SECRA.
Mike?
I hear what Rich is saying, and given that we often deal with controversial subjects and things like that, it is good to have the legal backup. And I've served to some degree in doing that, for example, with Vector and also with Legacy Village, because I've researched the law in the default situation when no one else is willing to do it. I'm not sure, though, I would have to disagree with you in one respect as to the attorney. I think we basically need someone who knows SECRA, and that's what Rich was alluding to. We need a long-term practitioner one way or the other. Mike was well-trained. Jim kind of knew that stuff. Kind of. He may have forgotten all of it. But we need somebody, a combination of Jim plus legal would be perfect. Those are very, very rare, and frankly, those usually end up in the private sector. Okay? But we need somebody, basically, who knows this stuff. We're generally pretty much on target. Jim knows SECRA, I know SECRA, Rich knows SECRA, we all deal with all of this stuff. But in terms of being in the trenches, okay, after we make our decisions, running the EISs, things like that, and taking the meetings, we have to have somebody who knows this stuff. We can't have a rookie. We can't have somebody who's coming up to speed. That's really the problem. Because again, we deal with stuff on the ledge side, we deal with stuff on the exec side, and we do a lot of minefields. And in that sense, Mike took a lot of training, and he got up to speed very, very well. That was a unique situation. But I don't know that we can settle, this is the key point for me, I don't know that we can settle for anyone who doesn't have decent experience on something, on this particular area. Again, there's stuff coming up, and I left you that phone call. There's stuff coming up. So,
Tom?
Well, I appreciate this need to make sure we are proper and accurate and legal. So an attorney is the definitive way to make sure we're achieving that. I'm one of the people who has very little, I have no formal training, legal formal training. And so I also need that opinion to make sure what we are thinking and interpreting is consistent with the law. I would want to understand whether this body is supposed to accomplish that check through some collection of wisdom, half an opinion, another half of an opinion, of experiential, or does this body have a designated attorney from the county who is our single go-to person if the heat really comes all the way up? Is it something that we as a group expect to accomplish by sort of sharing across collectively, or is there in fact some person that is the, this body was created in a charter? Doesn't that charter provide for who our legal counsel single point of accountability would be?
Aaron?
I would agree that we need somebody that knows secret inside and out. I would prefer not to have an attorney. The reason is that I think an attorney would sit here and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, and it would stifle the views that I think that very often come out of this group. And I would hate to see us stifled because there's an attorney here. With regard to Tom's comment, I think we have to be a little bit cautious. We've had some issues over the last 3 or 4 years in which I do not think the county attorneys have been very straightforward with us. In fact, at one point I suggested that we have independent counsel to advise us as opposed to county counsel. So I think, we have to think about this attorney business
no offense, Pete.
carefully.
Larry is correct in that we don't have a single point of contact with the attorneys. Generally, it gets run through Sarah, and then she calls the county attorney's office up. There's no one single person. It's bifurcated. Generally, there's one guy who sort of handles it, sort of initially, and then it gets parceled out to whoever. Okay. Tom Young is generally, and he sometimes has a plate around here, one of these things. He's sort of our point of contact, if you will, in our initial counsel. But we don't have anybody in the county attorney who's specifically assigned to us that gets parceled out. We also have access to the ledge counsel because we are a ledge body. They're a much smaller office. They have 3 people in it, maybe 4 now. And George Nolan is counsel over there. So we are sort of existing in a weird sense. We generally know more about this subject, seeker, than most of the attorneys do, at least in my experience, and Larry has alluded to that. Again, Jim has been doing it for 40 years. Rich has been doing it for nearly the equivalent amount of time. The attorneys are not that critical to it. We make the decisions. They got to back us up. We generally make the good decisions. We don't go outside of where seeker goes. But counting on the attorneys at the county attorney's office is not something I think should be determinative.
Jim?
I should point out, well, in the past, the county attorney's office, if the council has had a request, has assigned somebody to us. Infrequently. It doesn't happen very, very often. In addition, the CEQ is advisory to the Suffolk County Legislature. You don't make the final secret determinations or decisions. You send over a recommendation. And it has to then go through the legislative council and the county attorney's office and everybody else to look at it from a legal point of view. And in the past, I don't think they've ever overturned anything the CEQ has sent across the street.
They support us.
pursuant to the rules and regulations. Everything is pursuant to the rules and regulations of SECRA. So in that particular instance, whether staff or not has to have a legal background, they have to know about SECRA. They have to know about the rules and regulations and the classifications of actions and how to handle various projects and activities and in sending the council's recommendation across the street. But I don't think that legal counsel is critical here, per se.
Well, the real issue for me is, for example, when we run an EIS, okay, there's as you well know, running an EIS is not easy. That's where you get into the technical stuff. You got to oversee the consultants if one is hired or if it's done in-house. That's where we start getting into tricky ground, if you will, and it has to be handled very, very carefully. That's, in my opinion, 50% of the job. You know, the decisions we make around here as to what we think is going on. Again, that's only half the battle.
Well, you're right, Michael, but there hasn't been an EIS that the council has handled where there's been any kind of lawsuit or anything else.
Yeah, because we do it right.
Well,
Okay, and we generally are able to withstand scrutiny, because again, you know, I came in when, you know, what was it, 22 years ago, and you taught me how to do a lot of this stuff. You knew how to manage the process.
well, that's the point. There's a lot of expertise around this table here that are doing it longer than a lot of these attorneys.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
Oh.
that that's half the battle. It's not just concentrating on what happens at the table here today. It's what happens in the trenches, the meetings that have to be taken, and things like that. I mean, that's why I each time think somebody who's well-versed in SECRA and knows how to do it is the critical
No,
component.
most definitely.
Well, there's no question about it. I know plenty of attorneys, municipal and otherwise, where if you mention the term SECRA to them, they look at you like you have two heads. They don't know what you're talking about. On the other hand, there are attorneys, municipal attorneys, that are familiar with the law, and they can be helpful.
Okay,
In
Tom, one
addition,
more.
aside from the expertise of the person, do we have a choice or an input on the amount of time that person will be available to us? Will this be a person that's available to this role on a full-time basis, or is it always just 20%?
Well, it's always been in the past.
Mike,
been
you
full-time.
weigh-
Full-time.
Yes.
CEQ. I mean, that's the priority.
Yes.
Do we need to make a statement that we need
Yes.
to keep that level of
We're talking about
support, or is that
qualifications.
a given?
He's just sitting in full-time.
You think we need to say that, Jim?
I think we do.
Well, I don't know. I think they're considering possibly appointing somebody in there that their responsibilities to the CEQ will be part-time. But one of the things that they have to realize is the council's on a schedule here. Something comes in here, it goes out the door in 30 days. It gets sent out to all the appropriate people, responses come in, they get cataloged, they go before the council, the staff reviews it, makes recommendations, and so on. So, it's not like, well, we can just shove it off, you know, a couple of months, or I didn't get to it, or something like that. This is the priority, and that's for the legislature, I mean, and the county in terms of secret time limits.
We're in the charter doing that, and that, you've hit the nail on the head. Whether they go, how the staffer who would be part of the executive branch, being part of planning, would respond to our work needs and what is provided for in the charter. And Jim's just explained, we have definite deadlines. I don't know that someone half-time, and I expressed this to Gloria earlier, I don't know that someone half-time can necessarily do that. There has to be a priority on it. I don't know how far we can push to do something like that. We should express our concern and maybe our hope, and run it through Gloria, and she runs it through the powers that be upstairs. That's why she's chairperson. But that's an issue.
Part of the function, too, of the staff person, I mean, which really, or it falls on the staff person, is at the request of any party, department or person or legislator, the council shall assist in preparation of the environmental documents and running it through the proper process. So it's just not like, well, we receive things that come in there. The individual responsible for staffing CEQ works with departments in filling out environmental assessment forms, review them before they even get in here to find out if they're correct, could actually fill out the documents from scratch, all right? and working with legislators or the county exec's office or any department and that type of thing. So it's just not like we receive certain information, we put it on the agenda, we send it out. Is part of the responsibilities of the CEQ, which I had them put in this duty statement, are pretty exhaustive. So whether it takes 100% of the time, it depends. It depends on what the schedule is, how many projects are moving through the county, what the department's loads are, and that type of thing. But basically, it should be the top priority for the
privacy of the
individual.
mission.
Yes.
I remember once, for example, there was an issue regarding the airport
Okay,
and some
Mike,
construction
let me
nearby.
just-
Go ahead, sorry.
I just want to say, members of the board, I wanted to bring this up of our process of looking for a new person and fill you all in on what's going on so far and how we're going to do this, and get an idea of how people feel about what the new candidate's qualifications should be, all right, since I had discussed this with Jim and Christine and Sarah. So at this point in time, I'd like to move forward. I wanted everybody just to get an idea of what's going on. We will keep you apprised as the process continues, okay? And thank you all for your input. Okay?
Madam Chair, I have a conflict. I received a phone call and I need to go to some other meeting. So I need to leave. I apologize.
Oh, right away.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're just
Did
barely.
you have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay.
Other people, I have to leave also, eventually.
Okay, I'm moving on to the minutes. Has anyone had a chance to review August, October, and December minutes?
I reviewed August and October, and that was fine.
They look fine.
August, I was not here, so, but the other two, I
October,
was.
December, you reviewed?
December is okay, substantially okay,
Yeah.
and the one before that,
October.
October, was okay, but the August one,
Okay.
I was not here.
And Mike, you reviewed August and October. And Mary Ann?
I reviewed all three.
Okay. And everybody agreed that it was fine. Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to accept staff
Second?
minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay.
I'll abstain on August.
Okay. All right, project review, recommended unlisted action. Proposed coastal steward shellfish restoration program. All right, is there anyone here to speak about that?
Yes, there is. I'm Frank Castelli from the Department of Economic Development and Planning. This project was recommended for funding by the Water Quality Review Restoration Protection Program at the September 25th, 2012 meeting. This is the program that utilizes the 0.25% sales tax funding for environmental projects, water quality projects. And this particular project was recommended for funding by the committee. The amount of funding from the 0.25% is $115,786. And the committee voted this as a worthwhile use of the 0.25% funding. And we have David Johnson here today from Coastal Stewards to answer any possible questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed, Frank, that basically this went before the town of Brookhaven for an approval. They wrote a resolution, approve a resolution. What did they do with secret?
We have an agreement.
Go ahead.
Again, my name is Dave Johnson. I'm the director of the Coastal Steward. I'm also the founder. We have an agreement with the town of Brookhaven, which I just had a meeting with the supervisor and a number of the council members on Monday. And we're renewing that agreement. That was a one-year agreement which expired in December. We share facilities down in Mount Sinai Harbor, and we work under their Department of Environmental Protection, who has the permits from the New York State DEC.
I mean, well, what did they do with secret? I mean, they're a municipality responsible for implementing secret. What did they do? Did they make this an unlisted action with a negative declaration? Or did they just approve this thing with no secret at all?
For the contract.
Before they adopted the contract. I mean, contracts, before you sign them, are secretable. Just like the legislation across the street. They have to, undergo secret before they can approve it. So what did the town do with it?
Well, the town did a resolution to do this agreement. I don't know as far as secret, if they did a secret, I'm not privy to that information, but they have, permits in place to carry this on, and we fall under their umbrella.
I mean, because I'm just wondering whether the county should seek lead agency under this, and then if the negative declaration is issued, that the county holds secrets complete.
Well, he said they have some kind of an approval from the state, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, they have.
Did the state do
all-
secret?
No, it's not a fact.
You're laughing, Jim.
Jim, this is town of Brookhaven. Things happen.
Oh, he's talking about the state.
I know, but they don't do an independent
I'm not sure I
analysis.
understand your question
Right.
completely, though.
But this is our grant. This is,
The way the process works is the state can issue permits, and I'm speaking in a general sense. The state can issue permits and they do their own analysis, if you will, environmental analysis for their permits. But if it's an overall program, somebody's supposed to look at this environmentally. It may be perfectly sound, but if you don't do the proper paperwork, and I know this is exalting form over substance, if you don't do the proper paperwork and really take a hard look at this stuff, one, you can get sued on it and the program can be hammered pretty heavily or stopped. Two, you don't know what your impacts are. I mean, obviously, doing shellfish management is not exactly a harmful exercise or anything like that. I know the county, for example, with DeWitt is doing it out in Peconic Bay. But nonetheless, there has to have been some sort of environmental analysis blessing this, if nothing else. If the town of Brookhaven has not done this, then Jim's question is well placed. One, has the town done it? And two, what should we do about it? If we're funding this, and that, I don't know if we can be lead agency, are we the principal funders, or is the town a principal funder? I don't know.
Frank, that's.
Well,
Yeah, we are.
It's, the town, again, we have this agreement to share the facility down there, and they fund that facility.
Okay, but is there
It's
any,
conceivable that the shellfish mariculture program, which Brookhaven has underway, might have been acted on, and this is
Possible.
being seconded underneath it. It's
Well, that's
conceivable.
fine, but my question here is,
We just don't know.
what has the
Yeah,
town done?
how about I make a suggestion? We've got the gentleman here, we've got staff here looking at this. Let's hold any decision on this in abeyance until we get proper documentation. But let's hear what it's about.
Well, I don't want to delay it. I just have a simple question here is that all municipalities, including Suffolk County, are supposed to adhere to secret. And my question to Frank was, well, what did the town do to this? I mean, probably nothing, but it's an unlisted action. We can review the program and act on it.
I don't know who's done it.
My recommendation would be a negative declaration here, but then technically, you know, somebody should look into what the town has done.
But the town operates their hatchery, and they do so under, the town does have a contract, not a contract, a permit from the state DEC.
Well, I understand that,
to
but
operate the hatchery.
that
This
doesn't
just-
necessarily
it's folded
mean
into
that they've adhered to secret.
Right, yeah,
That doesn't mean
I
secret
can't
has been
answer for the
complied with.
town,
Yeah.
but I have spoken to them about this, and they said that they didn't have to do a secret. I don't know. Or maybe I'm taking it out of context, maybe I have it all
No, you're
wrong
not.
completely.
I mean, they could have said it was a type 2 action, and if they had quoted the rules and regulations, no further environmental review is necessary. Probably that's what DEC did when they issued the permit. But my question to you is what's been done at those levels, and nobody seems to know
If
anything.
nothing else,
Well,
allocation of money has to be covered
The
by.
agreement with the town is in here, and it says they're gonna comply with all the rules, regulations, and what have you, but I don't see a
Well,
word
then there
about
should be a
secret.
secret compliance in there.
I don't see anything about secret compliance in there.
And again, it's county money going in.
This
so-
is the town's environmental department, right?
Oh, is that an oxymoron?
Wait,
I can say that.
could I make a suggestion? Could I have Tom Carano get in contact with you or supply you with?
I don't want to hold
the
it up. I
answer to
mean,
your
if they find something out, if the town hasn't done it, then they should be advised that they have to do secret.
Yeah. Tom's pretty good.
Hold on.
Where are you putting the oyster?
Well,
Yeah, Dave, Larry's asking where the oysters are going to be placed.
Seeing as a lot of the harbor is closed to shellfishing, where are you putting it?
We're free casting the oysters throughout the Port Jefferson Harbor. And if you're familiar with what a commercial fisherman uses, it's a tote that they put their product, you know, their fish or their clams or whatever in. We fit approximately 1,000 in each tote, and these are adult oysters. These are over 7 months old. They're actually closer to 18 months old when we do release them. so that they've already spawned in our gear, and they're fully mature. We broadcast them randomly throughout the harbor, in closed and in open areas. We've been doing the shellfish restoration since 2000, and the town actually created 4 sanctuaries within the harbor, but they were unable to police it. So what we found was the baymen were going over to the 2 sanctuaries that we had, and vacuuming up basically everything. So, hard lesson learned. We put 30,000 oysters in each one of those sanctuaries, and 2 of them were completely devoid of oysters the following year. So now we broadcast 1,000 here and 1,000 there, and we document the latitude, longitude numbers of where we're doing it, how many, and what species they are. And so, one of the benefits besides not getting hit by the baymen, and we do this so the baymen can make a living too. But if they get you in one spot, they don't get you in another. It also helps dispersal of the larvae throughout the harbor complex, so you're getting a better dispersal throughout the harbor. If you get hit with the disease, it may affect one area but not another. That type of thing. There's a lot of reasons we do that.
I'd like to extend the same concern. Randomly sounds nice. It's definitely a way to dilute the presence and make it more difficult for people who are going to poach or harvest. But that harvesting, which you've now demonstrated is certainly happening vigorously, was what prompted my concern. The attractive nuisance is real, and you've demonstrated that. So, given that it's real, could we get you to agree that the random places you drive around are away from the zone of initial dilution, at least, for the effluents that we know are laden with stuff that's not even monitored yet with regard to pharmaceuticals and such? If you're going to let oysters and help them grow, great. Let's just not do it near certain places that we know are of concern and randomly cover other areas instead.
Right.
So that, it's odd to say. I would love to think that there's less oyster population regrowth happening in that area because it's going to get harvested. Could you just stay away from those certain areas?
The baymen stay away from the permanently closed areas.
I don't believe that.
Well, you just said
There's always a couple of bad apples, and what can I say? These are cowboys.
Well, we can say that it's not worth assuming that risk on behalf. You have plenty of other acreage.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There are, because of our efforts now, the baymen, for the past 3 seasons, have harvested over 800,000 oysters between Port Jefferson and Mount Sinai Harbor, which in turn generated over $1 million to the local economy. It's getting it's getting to the point where they don't have to go into those areas because there's going to be enough out there in open certified waters.
Yeah.
And we have about 440,000 oysters right now overwintering in our gear in Mount Sinai Harbor, which will be released last year through a grant through NOAA. So this is a continuation of that effort.
Mike?
Yeah, it's all about continuing and doing more of it. I think a lot of the harvest is happening offshore. We know where they are.
Yeah,
are doing a great job.
Looking out for Flax Pond.
Right. Yeah. So that's working. That's great. It just doesn't seem difficult to ask you to concede that you would actively avoid.
I can do that. I have no issue.
Stay away from the outflow forms. The dispersal patterns that you're going to be undertaking, are they designed to try and establish an active breeding population?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you think the concentrations are high enough? I know that in other breeding programs, basically if you don't have the oysters close enough to each other, they're not going to be able to spawn.
The substrate.
Well, that's why we're dropping them in 1,000 per spot. The way we do it is, well, first off, we have an underwater video camera, and so we look at the bottom and the sediment, because they need a hard packed bottom to survive. If they're muddy, they don't survive. We're not allowed to.
They fall in and drown.
Yeah. So when we're literally dumping them over the side, one tote at a time, the boat is moving very slowly. So you're getting a dispersal line of about 1,000, and they tend to stack up on each other because we go scuba diving down to verify, how they're doing.
Do you see people watching you as you're doing that?
Believe me,
Tracing your
they-
footprints?
The bad guys.
I bet you
know
they
what
are.
they're doing, and that's why we've been primarily putting them in the permanently closed end of Port Jefferson Harbor. But we go out there in all kinds of weather when they're not working, and we disperse them throughout certified waters as well.
The second question I have for you is in New York City Harbor.
Yes.
I believe it's on the western side, more towards New Jersey. They've been trying to do this kind of project.
It's actually been
And-
very successful.
Okay, and given the fact that the waters are somewhat, shall we say, not the most pleasant,
Tainted?
that's a good word for it, has there, given the New Jersey experience, do you think that you're going to be able to affect water quality through this program?
Absolutely. Absolutely. An adult oyster filters approximately 50 gallons of water a day. Just the 372,400 oysters that we've released, that's like 16 million gallons of water a day being filtered. Now we're going to put another 400,000 plus out there, and then with this grant, as you go along, you learn a lot of things. We're hoping we got a 2.7 survival rate last year, which is exactly what Cornell and the DEP told us we were going to get. I was shooting for 10% survival. And if we get 10% survival this summer, that's 1.5 million more oysters that we're going to be adding to the water. What you're seeing is the water quality is improving. Not only that, the oysters provide food and shelter for other organisms. So you're seeing a lot of other organisms coming back as well. And besides the recreational and commercial harvesting aspect of it. So there's many benefits.
One
to
other
this
question, where's the
program.
outflow pipe come out from the SDP?
It's on the west side, southern west side.
So that's a closed area, if I remember correctly?
Absolutely. And
Substrate's probably bad there anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, are there particular areas you'd like me to keep away from, like the outflow from,
That's,
okay.
well, I mean, there's arguments both
Well,
ways.
you say filter. Filter is one way to say the verb, and the other one is concentrate. I mean, they bioconcentrate
Well,
stuff.
they don't really concentrate it in their tissue,
It depends what stuff we're talking about.
yeah, that's true, that's
Okay,
true.
enough
But
said.
It's a
for
nitrogen.
the most part, it's encased in their effluent
But-
and excreted.
Yeah, but Tom?
But
One of
we
the-
use oysters as a monitoring tool because they do accumulate toxic materials. That's why we have the program, an international program called Mussel Watch. And where we don't have blue mussels, we use oysters. And the very reason that we do that is because they concentrate metals and organic compounds and so forth. And so they're a great monitoring tool. So you can't just say that they're defecating all this stuff. They don't.
Not
Are we
all- no,
monitoring
I-
these oysters?
Huh?
I hope I didn't say that.
Well,
Are
it
we
comes down to Tom's-
monitoring these oysters?
No, it
We don't,
does
but
have an international mussel watch program.
But Tom's question is well placed. Where do you put this and where do you avoid it? There are arguments to put it near the outfall pipe. There are arguments to avoid it. If you've got baymen coming by and scooping the stuff up, which is your objective, then you don't want to necessarily have it in a concentration area where they're going to be picking up stuff. At the same time, maybe you do want to have some of the stuff there because it will pick up stuff.
I assume that's closed, though, that area.
Yeah, it is closed.
Shellfishing.
Like
It is.
up at the northeast end of the harbor where the boats congregate. That's a
You know,
closed area also.
They did studies in the past, too, when the DEC closed various areas in Great South Bay and throughout the island. Those areas, because they weren't accessible, or weren't supposed to be accessible by the baymen, served as nursery areas to supply stock to the rest of the bays.
That's what he's basically trying to do.
And that's why that's one of the main reasons we were putting them in that area.
Have you thought about minefields?
Minefields? No.
Just asking.
I don't want to go there. but-
Okay, just asking.
I mean, I don't have any problems with the program, and I think the council can recommend an unlisted action with a negative declaration, provide all DEC permits are obtained. If you want to put in there, you could put in that the oysters are not put near any, outfall pipes or areas which might have, increased contamination. But I don't have a problem with it. I don't want to hold this up per se because the town of Brookhaven didn't do what they're
Well,
supposed to do.
let's add a request in that
I
we
mean, that's
find
not our
out.
job anyway. Secret doesn't require us to do that.
No.
Question, the neg deck, which I happen to agree with you, does that only cover the 477 aspect of this, or, the grant of funds? or is this wider in terms of blessing, if you will, the entire program? I don't know where we stand
We
on
weren't given
that.
the program, so it only covers the grant that's gonna be approved by the legislature.
We have to be
And
careful
wherever
then to
it's
say
gonna
that.
go.
Is that a motion, Jim?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second
I'll
it.
second it. All in favor? Motion passed.
Can I ask one?
Yeah, we just need
follow-up
to, if you can, recommendation that somebody talk to Tom Carano over at DEP and just find out what the story is.
I wonder if they did a secret on the entire program.
Yeah, that's what Jim was
That's
asking.
what I'm trying to find out.
That would make sense.
We'll find that out.
I mean, we
Dave,
did
can you
that.
find that out?
I'll have Tom, I'll leave Tom a message to call Frank on this then.
We'll find out.
It's,
Go ahead, Tom.
this is an open question, it's not necessarily to affect the motion or this recommendation, but there was a lot of discussion about this shellfish aquaculture, mariculture program in the Taconic, and that is largely a private enterprise, collection of private enterprises. In this case, it's largely top-down public funding to get things growing, and then the harvesting is happening like Wild West, which is happening. Is there anything that we can do or should do to make sure we're consistent or not inconsistent with regard to those two programs? It's not a secret consideration, but there's something in my gut that says, wait, municipality, the county is doing a lot to help private enterprise sell the product. And maybe the next time we could figure out a way to have them have a little more skin in the game on the propagation side, instead of just showing up to pull it off the bottom and sell it. You know, we're laying out county taxpayer cash to get a population to grow, and the harvesters who are making money from it are taking it down to as close to zero as they can get it, which is kind of defeating the real purpose of why we're putting it there. I wonder, I'm not saying that we have to start licensing and segmenting, but I wonder if there's some better balance of roles that the government can play.
That's the jurisdiction of DEC.
But the county had a role in the mariculture
Yeah.
decisions
Yes.
and
There was an EIS done on it
pertinence
also.
out in the county.
Yeah, but that's with our lands. We have approval.
Oh, I'm
over
sorry,
our-
that's where I missed it, right, it's not our lands to do that to.
Yeah.
So we're bettering state land.
And it was more
Yeah.
setting up a
Separate
program
discussion.
administratively. I mean, that's what DeWitt was doing for the longest time, setting up something administratively and selling off leases.
Because we had the ability
Because we
to.
had the ability to do it.
Here, we don't even have that, we're,
But who has the enforcement responsibility
DEC.
in the Port Jeff?
Oh, the harbor master supposedly.
So it's a town.
There's supposed to be a
no,
town harbor
there's
master for that area, but I don't think
state
they
agents
exist.
too, they're armed
They're armed, okay.
officers,
They are.
sure.
But,
The DEC police,
well, the town, as I was saying,
That's
also
not the
has,
harbor master, they're different.
that, they're different people, right?
Right.
they're sort of, both entities have regulation power.
I'm sure the harbor master could chase somebody away.
Yeah, well, we had that problem in Stony Brook Harbor for a number of years, and finally they fished out the area, and that's why we have a remnant of the population. It's just hard to please these guys.
Okay, we're going to move on. Recommended type 2 actions. Ratification and recommendations for legislative resolutions laid on the table December 18th, 2012, and January 2nd, 2013.
I've reviewed all of them. They all look okay. There were a couple 477s in there where it's just transfer of funds. They were approved. And now it gets approved at the 477 committee. The ledge adopts and then releases the money, basically. I think it was 1015, 1009, a few other places. So everything else looked okay.
I had a question on the one with Black's Pond. Is that money going to USGF? You know,
What is that number?
87, that would be 1015 out of January's.
Yes, Larry, that money is going to USGS for them to upgrade and recondition the monitoring station that they operate.
That's great.
This funding is to get that monitoring station back up.
They had to
Thank
shut it
you.
down.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to accept staff recs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rich. All in favor? Motion passed.
Showing you.
Second recommended type 2 action, proposed sewer district number 12, Richwood Holdrop. CP 8143, sewer system improvements, town of Brookhaven. Is there someone here to speak about this?
Good morning, Ben Wright with Public Works.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning. Last year we came to CEQ for a number of sewer districts. This is the same situation where we're being proactive with respect to the sewer system itself. Sewer District 12 has about 10 miles of sewers. It's located in Farmingville, Holbrook area, basically between Nichols Road and Holbrook Road, north of the expressway. But it was built in the 1960s, and when we do TV work on the sewers, we can identify some problems. We've got money in the capital budget to make some improvements. We don't know all the locations, but as we did last year and we got approval, it's all in-kind replacement. It's either excavate and replace a pipe or put a lining in it. So this particular one, the first area that we're located where there's a problem is on the sewage treatment plant site, which is kind of in the middle between Nichols Road and Holbrook Road. I know what we sent over with the package was hard to see. This is probably just as hard to see. But we're north of the expressway. Nichols Road is about a half a mile to the east of where we're working, and it would be right on the plant site. It's where a force main discharges. It releases some gases which have hydrogen sulfide in them, which corrode some of the pipe. So that's the first location, and we don't know others. We're in the process of TVing the sewer system. When we do, we'd like to make improvements and have basically a blanket approval for replacement in kind of whatever problems we come up with.
Are there any questions or concerns?
The improvements are to armor as opposed to...
It's either replace or line it.
Decrease
There is ways to line certain segments, but also manholes need rehabilitation.
So no new, I'll call it really new construction is going on whatsoever?
No, it's all in place, in kind
Just
replacement.
have to dig up what's there and replace.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
And then, how overgrown is the area that's being dug up and will?
Well, the only
vegetation
place
be
where there might be
used to-
some overgrowing is on the plant site itself. And it's basically, there are no trees, no shrubs. Grass cover would reseed it when we're finished. Everything else is really in the streets. There might be a few easement areas, but we haven't identified that that's a problem.
In other words, it's all within the right-of-way.
Yes, yeah, right-of-way easements or on the plant site.
What is the type, can you repeat what the type of material, or are you changing the type
A lot,
of material?
well, a lot of it is it was asbestos cement pipe, which, even though they should be extending beyond 50 years, when you have a corrosive atmosphere, et cetera, it gets spongy and could collapse at certain times. We've had a lot of problems in the older districts. So this one, being 45 to 50 years old, has some problems with that type of pipe. We replace it with mostly plastic pipe.
What is the lifespan of this plastic pipe, I'm curious?
I'm sure it's more than 100 years. I mean, you could structurally present a problem with it, but the sewage in it is not going to be a problem.
Does not corrode it anyway.
And you have to treat the asbestos?
There's certain guidelines you have to follow with encapsulating it in the trench and removing it and disposing of it properly. We have trained
Right.
maintenance staff that do that, or contractors.
Is there a motion?
Type 2 action,
Second?
replacement in kind on the same site.
Okay. All in favor? Motion passed. Thank you, Ben.
Boy,
Yes.
I have some other business. I noticed that we didn't have any historic report today, nor was it on our agenda.
Oh, that would be my error in rearranging the agenda.
Disappeared.
It disappeared. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, we will do some historic business right now then. Thank you for pointing that out.
Do we have
You're
votes
usually at the front of the
Do we have
agenda.
votes that we need to quorum for first? I'm just wondering.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do we have votes that we need to quorum for?
the
Yes.
election of officers.
To-
Election of
Oh,
officers.
well, we can do this later.
Yeah,
I just.
And I don't have much.
You-
Okay, but let's just,
And I'm
sure.
I know we've got plenty of time,
Okay.
but I don't want to.
No, we can do this at the end.
Okay, all right. Moving on, other business then. Election of officers. Mary Ann?
I would like to nominate Gloria Russo for chair and Jim Bagg for vice chair.
I'll second it.
Seconded by
to
Larry.
regret it.
Any other comments? Proposals?
Any other suckers?
All in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
All righty, let's,
So,
yeah, I want to quickly move on to Resolution 1006-12, prohibiting use of hydraulic fracture brine on county property and roadways. I just want to mention there is a paper in the packet describing it, and this resolution was approved on December 3rd, 2012. Kara, thank you. You and Larry, thank you. All right, I just want to bring that so everybody's aware of that.
It was Legislator Calarco was the main sponsor, but I would.
Thank you very much, Kara. Tom?
Was it possible to define that water clearly enough to differentiate between the fluid that comes out of the well and fluid that comes out of the well and then goes into processing and recycling and it splits into various streams? Well, not that any of it's going to make it towards the drinking water supply, but my point is that the processing of frac fluid is becoming pretty aggressive, and some of it's being sub-volume is being sent back into fracking because it's good for that. We don't want it out on the road. Other parts of the water is being used for different purposes, and some of it actually becomes okay. Some of the volume is. So I was wondering if, in the development of that resolution, did they try to consider that, or is just any fluid associated with the frac operation considered fracking fluid waste?
As far as I know,
It's all
kind of all encompassing at the moment. If there's a standard, if there's a way to better describe the standard, I'm sure we would consider that. But at this time, I don't know what kind of capacity the Department of Public Works has to test and to assure that it's safe, because anything that winds up on our roadways winds up in our water.
I agree, totally agree.
And I don't know that we have that capacity at the moment to ensure
That's what I was trying to
the
make
safety.
sure that the teeth were mindful of the fact that people are going to start saying, that's not really fracking fluid. The fracking fluid is in pipe number 2. Pipe number 1 is the stuff that's
wait till it's developed is what I think.
Part of the problem, Tom, is that in the area where this is going to take place, up by Binghamton and so forth, that there are no facilities to deal with it at all, basically. And so they were having to truck it, according to the environmental impact statement, to facilities that could begin to.
Yeah, we're working with some of them to try to figure out.
So that's why New York City sewage treatment plants and Suffolk counties and Nassau's were identified.
Bring it there, right?
Bring it here.
If nothing else, Tom, it could be Bayman going up there and coming down. You don't know what they're bringing.
They're cowboys.
Yes.
They're cowboys.
Very good, Michael.
Okay, there is, just to bring to your attention, an article dated November 29th, 2012, regarding the Vanderbilt Revitalization Plan. I haven't had a chance to read it myself. Has anyone had a chance to read it? Just fill us in quickly on it.
Yeah, the Long Islander is my tenant downstairs in my office, and so I pulled this off of their paper, and I also was talking to the editor. What it boils down to is they're trying to think a little bit outside of the box. They're trying to make, or the proposal right now that is encompassed in this article is to make this a destination center, which from a marketing standpoint is a very intelligent thing. The Vanderbilt is not patronized nearly as much as it could be or should be, despite the advertising that goes on for it. So they're thinking a little bit out of the box, and they're trying to get funding for it. But they're talking about certain things that I don't think would necessarily comport with the essential park designation of this place. I know it's done under a will. I read the will. We had this issue a year or two ago. But there's some things in here that I don't think would necessarily fit. For example, the housing that would go in over there for the conference center resort built into the side of the hill below the planetarium, with rooms terraced on the side of the hill towards the waterfront. It seems to be a relatively far-fetched proposal in terms of either a will or park purposes. At the same time, it would be a spectacular view. I mean, if you've ever been down there, the place is spectacular. It does look out over, I think it's Asheroken and parts of Huntington Harbor, etc. So they're thinking big. They want to do the public-private partnerships, etc. They're thinking about it beyond just a cell tower. The problem is how far they're allowed to go, and that's a legal issue. I think some of the stuff could work, some of it might not. Just again, from what does the will say and what is the purpose. On the other hand, the place is cash-strapped. It's a valuable asset to the county, and you know, they're in desperate shape.
Okay. All right, I want to get back to replacing Mr. Moulet, because Sarah Mansdale is here now. Sarah, before you were able to join us, we did briefly discuss among the board members concerns of what the person felt was important to look for the new candidate, and we did go about that, you know, get some input. But I did mention that you, Christine, Jim, and I were in touch, and we talked about qualifications, etc. That is in here also in our packet, and so we went through that. Do any board members here want to ask Sarah any questions as far as the process and how the time frame looks? I know we have a short-term time frame with Peter Scully Jr. sitting here, but do you want to just quickly, Sarah, talk about the time frame and what you think it might turn out when we'll have a full replacement?
I also just want to, I don't think you were here when we were asking the question before, that we want to ensure that it's a full-time responsibility.
It's kind of the consensus that grew up around here because of the varied responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So with input from Gloria and Jim, Christine and I revised the job description, the duty statement as it's called here in county speak, for the position, and we have submitted it to I've submitted it to the Commissioner of Economic Development and Planning, who then will in turn request that this position be filled, and she's in process of doing that. So I hope that by the next meeting that we will have someone in place, and if we don't, then certainly by the March meeting of CEQ, we will have someone in place that's full-time, and that hopefully will meet everyone's expectations.
Okay, Mike?
Again, you weren't here for it, and forgive me.
And I'm sorry, I apologize. I was on a conference call with
You're allowed.
DEC
It's okay.
on brownfields and land banks. So
And you had to make a push on that. I think the consensus around the table was we needed someone with experience, who, because a lot of the job beyond the administrative is literally being in the trenches. For example, running EISs when they happen, running the process as is set forth in the charter, etc. That was, again, just sort of the discussions around the table. Again, experience being critical, and a fundamental knowledge of basically land use and environmental impacts.
And most importantly, an inside, outside, upside down knowledge of the secret process. Yeah. That was definitely a consensus.
Yeah, because we can't live without that. I mean, a lot of us know it pretty well over here, but you know, we've encountered over the years, you know, issues that come up with it. And stay away from lawyers. Again, no offense, Pete. No offense. I mean, if your secret knowledge, if you apply for the job, if your secret knowledge is better than your law knowledge, it's okay with me.
Let me just explain, Sarah, that was brought up because a couple of board members thought maybe perhaps a person with a law background would be very beneficial for us, and a couple other people were like, no, we don't think so. So that's where that issue came up.
I think what's important is that when you mention the term secret, they don't look at you like you had two heads. Okay?
Say, what's that?
What's that? Yeah.
Right.
What is
See
it?
what?
right.
So what?
How do you spell that? Yeah. Understood.
S or C, huh?
Secret, what's that?
All right, any other questions that anybody would like to ask Sarah?
Oh,
Go ahead.
no.
I just want to thank everyone, especially Gloria and Jim, for all of your input throughout this transition process. And thanks for all of the members kind of stepping up during this transition.
You're more than welcome.
Very appreciated, thank you.
Any other concerns, questions for Sarah? Sarah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
For joining us. All right, Mary Ann, Rich, we're moving on to historical.
I don't have much today. The housing program, there's no updates on that at this point. The houses are filled. The custodial agreements, we're still working on the ones I've mentioned in the past. I'm specifically working on the one now with the Sag Coast Manor Historical Society. And I think I've mentioned before, but the time lapse now is more time because the contracts are essentially new. They've, instead of just extending them as an amendment, they really revised them so completely that it's essentially a new contract. So it's taking a lot more time to go through these than before. And something new I wanted to bring up is that I'm working with the Yaphank Historical Society to get the Mary Louise Booth House listed on the state and national register. That's our house in Yaphank. And I'm still waiting to see that the state will declare it eligible because we moved, if you remember, we moved that house into the park. So you really need to have a good reason to put it on the national register, which we think we do because of the condition of the building being very original and the interest in Mary Louise Booth that's just growing. And we're hoping this will be included as a part, one of the sites on the New York State Path Through History program, that this will be identified as one of the sites relating to the women's rights movements in New York State. So hopefully that'll be successful and we'll get some publicity on that.
Thank you. Is that all?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, correspondence. There was another letter in our packets, correspondence from Dominic Ninabaji about vector control assisting with debris removal in Mastic Beach after the tropical storm Sandy. And everything had proper DEC permits, etc., and everything was all right with it. He did ask if we needed to come here to speak, and I said no, it wasn't necessary, that everything looked okay and done properly. So, but the letter is here if anybody wants to read it and go through it. Any other concerns, CAC concerns, Joy? Nothing at all? Anybody else, anything?
Did you want to bring up?
Why don't you?
Go ahead.
No, I will if you'd like.
No, I
Whichever.
mean, I think we have some clarification on the question we had about the historic funding.
Hotel motel.
Hotel motel tax dollars. And I guess I made the mistake of thinking you meant we could change the percentage that came out of Vanderbilt or that came from the
Walt Whitman.
Walt Whitman House, the percentages that were assigned, and then the percentage that goes to other local projects and historic services. That can't be changed by the legislature, but what could
No.
potentially...
Okay, so there was this confusion of whether or not the legislature could change the apportionment in hotel motel tax.
Okay.
And Steve Engelbart wrote that legislation, so I went and talked to him about it. A couple of years ago, two items, they aren't named Vanderbilt or Walt Whitman, but they're described in such a way that it can be nothing else, were earmarked for a period of time. So some of that money is going to Vanderbilt and to Walt Whitman.
Does that all expire in 2014? Is that
I
both of
forget.
those?
You have to go back to the legislation.
Well, that's what this article...
Right, it does mention it in this article.
214? Okay.
We have to
Yeah.
check that.
So what
And
happens,
I think that's about right.
what happens after 2014?
Hopefully it's just renewed.
Well, I mean,
Or does it all come to
the
historic
sense when it was
Right.
done was to help them in a time of need. Whether it be renewed, I don't know. The hotel motel tax, initially, the intent was that a portion of that would go to supplement historic services, to supplement efforts in Suffolk County with historic properties. And for a long time, that's what it did. And then a couple of years ago, the legislature took the line item in the parks budget that provides for historic services, that's staff salaries plus money, and they took that entire line item and moved it over and put it in the hotel motel tax. So instead of a portion of hotel motel tax coming over and supplementing historic services efforts, it's supplanted. And the result is that Rich has less money. Instead of extra money helping him, he has less money. And so I brought up last meeting that I don't remember what I brought up, but I certainly would like the legislature to take that back out and put it in parks and have this percentage, whatever it is, from hotel motel supplementing historic services. The question was whether or not the legislature could do that. All right? It was the legislature that took it out of parks and put it there. The legislature can, in fact, take it back and put it in parks. What the legislature cannot do is affect the monies that go to Vanderbilt and Walt Whitman. That's written into the law. So that does require the state. And that was the confusion. Did I do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Any other items? Any concerns? Is there a motion to close the meeting?
Make a motion.
Seconded? By Kara, all in favor? Motion passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So where'd you get your undergraduate degree?
Cornell University.
Oh, you did, huh? You go to Storybrooke like your dad did, huh? You get your law degree there too, or?
No, I went to
It is breaking my rule. Co-working very hard.
everybody.
It's something to say about it.
Everyone goes back to get married to Bucknell Chapel. I know.
I thought that was great. But yeah, we made it.
Oh, we're gonna have fun.
All right.
The house is Mary Louise Booth. I couldn't get why I didn't hear last. And I'm sorry.
She did a lot of things, but